All right, so today I want to talk about the things I've learned getting the 140 back airworthy. And I was gonna shoot it down here in the hangar, but it is hot as blue blazes. It's gotta be 100 degrees in here. So I'm gonna go back to the house and I'm just gonna sit in the office and chat about it. Maybe it's not as hot as I thought. So I just got back from Oshkosh a couple days ago now, and I wanted to sit down and discuss some of the things I learned in this Cessna 140 project, things that were lessons that I wish I knew on the front side of it, and hopefully stuff that will be valuable to you, or if you're just curious, you will maybe get some insight out of this assessment of how things went. So I've literally made a list here of things that I learned, sometimes the hard way, sometimes just naturally when doing this project. And the very first one was time management. So I cannot tell you the times that I would say on my channel. And we're gonna be hopefully getting it to fly within the next few weeks. The understanding of how long the project would take is critical when you're restoring an aircraft. I think in my very first video, I thought I would have the annual done in about 3 or 4 months.
And we're gonna be hopefully getting it to fly within the next few weeks.
It was about a year from the time I said that to the time that it actually was done and I was getting ready to fly it out because of delays, because of new problems that arose. And so time management was the very first thing that caught me off guard, just how long a unknown project like a barn find aircraft would take to get back airworthy. So in addition to things taking more time, also build a timeline. Using a notebook or even a whiteboard, you know, realistically start jotting out what you need to do and how long it's gonna take. I sort of did this in the annual, looking at squawks on a whiteboard, but I didn't put a time budget for each of these items. And that can be huge, especially if you're a single operator, single mechanic working on something. That was one of the things that almost really slowed me down on a few areas of my annual. Okay, so the third thing that I really liked that I did that I want to recommend is the forum. So for me, the Cessna 120, 140 organization was a huge asset. Being able to jump online and see somebody's address the issue with the fuel selector that I have. The money that you spend to be part of a type specific forum is invaluable. That's the best money I've ever spent on this restoration, was becoming a member of the Cessna 120, 140 Association. And I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm literally just saying that that was the most valuable thing for me during this process. A lot of organizations have something like this, but like this is the Cessna 120, 140 reference manual. A great asset. It's got basically all of the service bulletins or even airworthiness directives are in here, which those you gotta be careful with. They can obviously get updated. But this is a wealth of knowledge. It was an additional cost when I joined, but worth every penny of it to buy that. So you'll find stuff like that. I mean, I've been a member of Mall forums before and Piper forums. So just going online and becoming a member of the organization for the aircraft you're trying to build or restore will end up saving you time and money in the long run. More importantly, it can let you network with individuals who can help you if you run into a snag, or you might even need somebody to come out to give you a hand on something. This may not be part of your project, but for me, one of the reasons that it took so long was I was editing these videos. So on top of actually working on the aircraft, I am the only person behind the camera here, so to speak. So outside of a few buddies that came in to do some drone flying for me, I would just move cameras around and take some shots, and that was time consuming. So if you're documenting it, don't be afraid to ask for some help when it comes to setting up a camera and filming it, and make sure that you're doing all of this, you know, safety first. If you try to rush, you are going to make a mistake and someone is going to get hurt. I mean, I remember the day I changed the oil in the aircraft. It was an 8-hour day for something that should have taken about an hour and a half because of the shots that I wanted to get with the camera. In a similar vein to getting help if you need it in that, you cannot be arrogant and assume that you know how to do everything. If you have a question, if you have a problem that you've run into that you can't really solve, the best thing to do is just to whether it's on a forum or even at the local airport, talking with some of the guys that have more experience turning wrenches than you, for my AMPs that are watching this, you cannot get so proud that you cannot ask for help. I cannot tell you the times that I texted buddies, that I reached out to individuals who I trust and got their opinions about certain items, whether it was the fabric and verifying that the fabric was safe before I flew it for the first time in a decade, up to, what my oil analysis looked like. But all of these items, if you're not confident in what you're doing, I cannot stress enough, get someone who's done it before to walk you through it. There's too many accidents that have occurred because of egos. That doesn't need to happen when you're restoring an aircraft. So make sure you have the ability to self-check your ego and go get some help. So an additional item that I did not realize how important it would be when I first got started was organization. It is incredibly critical, whether you're talking about taking screws out of the cowling or taking apart an airbox, or for that matter, if you're getting serviceable or even new parts, it is incredibly important to maintain a neat and clean and organized method of parts inventorying. Because, for example, I took the cowling off in probably June of 2022. And that cowling did not go back on until basically May the next year. There was this massive amount of time that if I had not labeled the bag to say lower cowling screws or upper cowling screws, I would have lost it. I cannot stress enough, if you take a screw out, label it. If you take an inspection panel off, lay it out on a clean table and label it, simple as painter's tape on the part and a note of where it came from. And in addition to this, take pictures. There were so many things that if I was getting ready to unhook something, I got my phone out, took a quick photo, then undid it and saved that into the 140 album on my phone, where I sort of stored all those photos through the process. You'd be surprised at the times that saved my bacon when making sure that something went back together on this aircraft that has a non-standard engine, that has a bunch of not typical or not clearly shown in a parts catalog. So it's really important to do that, taking those photos, managing your organizational system to where you know what everything is and where it goes. In a similar vein to that, obviously anything that you've got an 8130 form or a maintenance release form with, you're gonna wanna keep those by law. That's required to be with the aircraft till superseded. Most people retain these for the duration of their aircraft, and in some cases you have to have those coupled with a 337, where you do need a major alteration or repair form done for some of the work on the aircraft. Sometimes that's items like STCs. For example, the landing light that I installed was an STC landing light. The bracket air filter was an STC bracket air filter. So you got to fill those forms out and do them. And it's incredibly important to make sure all your documentation and paperwork is together, because going back to our first thing, time management, if this stretches out over several months or even several years, you could be in a situation to where you are trying to wrap up the legal documentation to return this aircraft to service in a logbook entry and not have a good clear picture. Now you're in trouble because you couldn't remember what you did. I was incredibly organized when it came to the paperwork, which made it super easy at the end of a year to put everything into the annual inspection that I had done. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this in-depth kind of analysis here of things that I did that really helped, as well as just my recommendations. If you are about to get into a project, if you are looking at a project plane, how do you approach that? What are some things? I cannot recommend enough any forums. Obviously, I recommend seeking out counsel and advice where you are unable to perform, and making sure you stay organized. Those three things are probably the top three takeaways that I have. I really appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate, again, I know I've said this 100 times, but I really have been blown away by the outpour of interest in this project. And I'm excited about the next chapter for the Cessna 140. I was at Oshkosh, like I said last week, and ended up getting some mods to put on the aircraft, one of which was a hooker harness. So this will end up going in at annual here in a couple days, because the plane goes down tomorrow at the time of this recording for annual. So I'll be doing that. I've also got some bushwheel tires coming in that I'm gonna be installing on the aircraft. And I can't wait to kind of show you guys that process, as well as dig into a in-depth look at the annual one more time. Probably a single video will cover that, just hit the highlights, and we'll go from there. Thanks, and I will see you next time.